Imagine an empire that stretched across continents, a civilization whose influence shaped the destinies of countless nations, a land where deserts and mountains, rivers and plains formed the stage for one of the greatest stories of human ambition and ingenuity. This was Persia, a land that, even in its earliest days, seemed destined to produce greatness. Long before the world knew of its vast empires and monumental achievements, Persia was a patchwork of small tribes, scattered settlements, and ancient traditions that had survived for centuries. Its people were hardy, accustomed to the harshness of the highlands and the extremes of climate, and yet they carried within them a vision that would, in time, unite a continent under a single banner. The Iranian plateau, with its rolling hills, fertile valleys, and arid expanses, provided both a home and a challenge. The Zagros Mountains rose like guardians to the west, separating the Persians from their neighbors and protecting them from the frequent invasions that plagued other regions. To the east, the deserts stretched endlessly, testing the endurance of those who dared to cross them. Rivers such as the Karun and the Aras offered life, giving water and routes for trade, while the soil, though often harsh, nurtured the crops that sustained the population. In these conditions, the early Persians learned resilience, adaptability, and a sense of community that would form the backbone of the empire they would later create. For centuries, the Persians existed quietly among other peoples of the ancient Near East. They shared borders with the Medes, the Elamites, and smaller tribal confederations, each with their own distinct languages, customs, and governance. The Medes, in particular, were a powerful force in the region, their kings ruling over large territories and influencing the political landscape. The Persians, however, were not content merely to live in the shadow of stronger neighbors. Even in these early times, they demonstrated a remarkable capacity for organization, military skill, and diplomacy that hinted at their future potential. It was in this environment of both challenge and opportunity that Cyrus, later known as Cyrus the Great, was born. His birth was shrouded in legend, and stories of his early life suggest a figure destined for greatness from the start. Some say that he was prophesied to overthrow kings and create an empire that would endure for centuries. Others recount tales of his youth, of a boy who displayed wisdom beyond his years, courage that defied fear, and a vision that looked far beyond the hills and valleys of his homeland. Cyrus grew up in a world of shifting alliances and rivalries, where loyalty was tested daily, and survival demanded both cunning and courage. From a young age, Cyrus learned the arts of leadership and strategy. He observed the kings of neighboring lands, studied their methods of rule, and recognized the weaknesses that often led to their downfall. Unlike many rulers who relied solely on brute force, Cyrus understood the power of respect, diplomacy, and the integration of diverse peoples under a single system of governance. He knew that to rule an empire effectively, one must win not only battles but hearts and minds. This understanding would become one of the defining features of his reign and set him apart from other conquerors of his time. Cyrus's rise began in the small region of Ancient, a Persian territory under the suzerainty of the Median kings. With a combination of political acumen and military prowess, he united the Persian tribes, consolidating their strength and forging alliances that had previously seemed impossible. His campaigns were marked by careful planning, surprise tactics, and a willingness to innovate. He understood that conquest was not merely about defeating an enemy in battle, but about creating a sustainable system of governance that could hold an empire together. In 550 BC, Cyrus achieved a feat that would change the course of history. He overthrew the Median king, his former overlord, and declared himself the ruler of a united Persian kingdom. This was not a simple military victory. it was a revolution that transformed the political landscape of the region. By uniting the Persians under his leadership, Cyrus laid the foundation for the Achaemenid Empire, a state that would soon extend its reach across the known world. Cyrus's vision extended far beyond the borders of Persia. He recognized that the strength of an empire lay not only in its armies, but in its ability to integrate and respect the cultures and traditions of the peoples it conquered. This approach was revolutionary. In an age when rulers often demanded absolute submission and imposed their customs by force, Cyrus adopted a policy of tolerance and inclusion. He allowed conquered peoples to maintain their religions, traditions, and local governance, provided they acknowledged Persian authority and contributed to the stability of the empire. This strategy won him loyalty, reduced resistance, and created a sense of shared purpose among diverse populations. One of the most famous examples of Cyrus's enlightened rule was his conquest of Babylon in 539 BC. Unlike many conquerors who sacked cities and enslaved populations, Cyrus entered Babylon peacefully. He was welcomed as a liberator, and his policies respected the customs and religious practices of the Babylonians. The Cyrus cylinder, an ancient artifact often regarded as the first declaration of human rights, records his approach, allowing displaced peoples to return to their homelands, restoring temples, and ensuring justice and fairness for all subjects. This act not only solidified his reputation as a wise and just ruler, but also set a precedent for future governance across his empire. The early Persian Empire was remarkable not only for its military and administrative achievements, but also for the vision that Cyrus instilled in his successors. He demonstrated that an empire could be held together through respect, organization, and cultural integration rather than fear alone. His model would influence generations of rulers, from his son Cambyses to Darius the Great, who would expand the empire to unprecedented heights. As Persia grew, it became a hub of cultural exchange and innovation. The early cities, built along trade routes and rivers, became centers of commerce, learning, and art. Merchants, scholars, and artisans traveled freely, bringing with them ideas and technologies from distant lands. This flow of knowledge and goods strengthened the empire economically, culturally, and politically, making Persia not just a land of conquest, but a civilization at the forefront of human achievement. Cyrus's reign also emphasized the importance of infrastructure. Roads, canals, and administrative centers were constructed to facilitate communication, trade, and governance. The Royal Road, which would later become legendary under Darius, had its foundations in these early efforts, connecting cities and provinces across vast distances. These roads allowed for the rapid movement of armies, officials, and information, ensuring that the central government could maintain control over far-flung territories. The rise of Persia under Cyrus the Great represents a turning point in human history. It was the emergence of an empire that combined military skill with administrative brilliance, conquest with tolerance, and ambition with vision. Persia was no longer just a collection of tribes and cities. It had become a force capable of influencing the fate of the entire ancient world. In these early years, the seeds of greatness were sown. The values of leadership, diplomacy, and respect for diversity that Cyrus embodied would become the hallmarks of Persian civilization. His vision of a united empire, stretching from the mountains of the north to the rivers of the south, laid the groundwork for centuries of innovation, cultural exchange, and historical impact. As we look back on the rise of Persia, it is clear that this empire was extraordinary not only because of its size or wealth, but because of the principles on which it was founded. The story of Cyrus the Great and the early Persians reminds us that the power of an empire lies not only in armies and conquest, but in vision, wisdom, and the ability to unite diverse peoples under a shared purpose. The foundation of Persia was not merely a political achievement, it was the birth of a civilization that would echo across history, leaving an indelible mark on the world. The Iranian plateau, once home to scattered tribes and small settlements, had become the cradle of an empire that would inspire generations. The mountains and deserts, rivers and valleys, which had once challenged the early Persians, were now the backdrop for the rise of a civilization that would command respect, admiration, and fear across continents. And at the heart of this transformation stood Cyrus the Great, a man whose vision, courage, and wisdom would define the essence of Persian greatness for centuries to come. Through diplomacy, military strategy, and a profound understanding of human nature, Cyrus united his people, secured his borders, and created a system of governance that would endure long after his reign. The rise of Persia was not a sudden event, but a carefully crafted journey, a testament to the determination, intelligence, and ambition of its people. It was a story of struggle and triumph, of vision and execution, of a people who dared to dream beyond the confines of their immediate surroundings. In these formative years, Persia began to carve its place in the annals of history. The empire's early foundations, laid by Cyrus and his successors, would support centuries of growth, innovation, and expansion. Cities would flourish, trade would thrive, and cultures would intermingle, creating a vibrant tapestry of human achievement. Persia, which had once been a remote and fragmented land, was now poised to become the empire that would rule the world. The rise of Persia reminds us that greatness is never accidental. It is the result of vision, strategy, courage, and an understanding of the world and the people who inhabit it. Cyrus the Great and the early Persians understood this principle, and in doing so, they set in motion a chain of events that would shape history for millennia. By uniting the Persian tribes, respecting the cultures of conquered peoples, and building an infrastructure capable of supporting a vast empire, Cyrus created a model of governance that was ahead of its time. The early Persian Empire was more than a political entity. It was a civilization founded on principles of justice, respect, and unity, principles that would define its legacy for centuries to come. And so, the story of Persia begins not with kings and battles alone, but with a vision, a people, and a land that together created one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. The Iranian plateau, once a land of scattered tribes, had become the heart of an empire destined to change the world, and at its center stood Cyrus the Great, whose name would echo through history as the founder of Persia, the empire that ruled the world. Cyrus the Great, whose name would echo through the annals of history, was not merely a conqueror of lands, but a visionary whose understanding of power, governance, and humanity set him apart from nearly every ruler of his age. From the moment he took the throne, Cyrus demonstrated that leadership was far more than a matter of force or inheritance. It required insight, intelligence, and a profound understanding of the people he governed, the lands he sought to rule, and the complexities of an ever-changing political landscape. He was a man born of both circumstance and destiny, whose upbringing, environment, and innate abilities combined to produce a ruler whose ambitions would reshape the world. Cyrus's early life, though veiled in legend, reveals glimpses of a personality shaped by hardship, observation, and reflection. Stories of his youth describe a boy of exceptional intelligence, whose curiosity was matched only by his determination. From a young age, he displayed an acute awareness of human behavior, a keen understanding of strategy, and an innate sense of justice. These qualities, nurtured in the small Persian settlements and the surrounding tribal lands, prepared him for the extraordinary responsibilities that lay ahead. The Iranian plateau, with its rugged mountains, fertile valleys, and scattered communities, was both a classroom and a crucible, teaching Cyrus lessons in survival, diplomacy, and leadership that no book or teacher could provide. Cyrus's rise to power began with the unification of the Persian tribes, a task that demanded more than mere military skill. In a region marked by rivalry and frequent conflict, bringing together diverse clans and tribes required patience, persuasion, and the ability to inspire loyalty. Cyrus achieved this not through intimidation alone, but through a combination of diplomacy, fairness, and the promise of shared prosperity. He recognized that loyalty could not be commanded. It had to be earned, nurtured, and respected. This understanding would become a hallmark of his reign, distinguishing him from rulers who relied solely on fear or coercion. Once united, the Persians under Cyrus were poised to challenge the dominance of the Medes, their more powerful neighbors and former overlords. The Medes, a formidable people with a strong military tradition, had long held sway over the region, and their kings ruled with authority and influence. Yet Cyrus's strategy was precise, calculated, and visionary. He built alliances where others might have seen enemies, identified weaknesses in Median governance, and employed tactics that combined both military ingenuity and psychological insight. The overthrow of the Median king was not merely a conquest. It was the culmination of years of careful planning, negotiation, and preparation, resulting in a swift and decisive victory that would lay the foundation for the Persian Empire. What set Cyrus apart from other conquerors of his time was his approach to governance. While many rulers sought to impose their will by force, Cyrus understood the importance of respecting the cultures, religions, and traditions of the peoples he incorporated into his empire. This approach was revolutionary. He knew that an empire built solely on fear was fragile, and that long-term stability required consent, cooperation, and the integration of diverse populations. Conquered peoples were allowed to maintain their customs, practice their religions, and even participate in local governance, provided they acknowledged Persian authority. This policy of tolerance and inclusion not only minimized rebellion, but also fostered loyalty, creating a sense of shared purpose across an empire that stretched across thousands of miles. One of the most famous examples of Cyrus's enlightened rule was his conquest of Babylon, one of the most important cities of the ancient world. In 539 BC, the walls of Babylon, which had withstood countless sieges, opened to Cyrus not through force but because of the respect and strategy he employed. The Babylonians, weary of their own kings and discontent with internal strife, welcomed Cyrus as a liberator rather than an oppressor. His entry into the city was marked by ceremony and respect, reflecting his understanding that the hearts of people were as important as the territories they inhabited. The Cyrus cylinder, an ancient clay artifact, records his policies, emphasizing religious tolerance, the return of displaced peoples to their homelands, and the restoration of temples and cultural institutions. In this act, Cyrus demonstrated a profound commitment to justice, compassion, and the principles of governance that would define his reign. Cyrus's vision extended beyond the conquest of cities and territories. He understood that the strength of an empire depended on the efficient administration of its vast lands. To this end, he implemented systems that allowed for local autonomy while maintaining central control. Regional governors, or satraps, were appointed to oversee provinces, ensuring that laws were enforced, taxes were collected, and disputes were adjudicated. Yet these governors were not absolute rulers. They operated under the guidance and oversight of the king, creating a balance between centralized authority and local autonomy. This administrative structure was both innovative and practical, allowing the Persian Empire to function effectively despite its immense size and diversity. Military organization under Cyrus was another key element of his success. The Persian army was disciplined, well-trained, and adaptable, capable of responding to the unique challenges of different terrains and adversaries. Cyrus understood that strategy was as important as strength, and he employed tactics that combined mobility, intelligence, and psychological warfare. He was known for his ability to anticipate the moves of his enemies, exploiting weaknesses and turning apparent disadvantages into opportunities. His campaigns were marked not only by victories but by careful planning, resource management, and an understanding of logistics that ensured his forces remained effective even across great distances. Despite his military prowess, Cyrus's legacy is most enduring for the way he wielded power with wisdom and restraint. Unlike rulers who sought glory through destruction, he pursued conquest as a means to unify, organize, and improve the lands under his control. His campaigns were guided by a sense of purpose, a vision of an empire where justice, culture, and prosperity could flourish. This approach earned him admiration from allies and enemies alike, establishing a reputation that transcended borders and generations. To his contemporaries, Cyrus was not just a king, he was a symbol of enlightened leadership, a model for rulers who sought to combine power with morality. Cyrus's reign also emphasized the importance of infrastructure, trade, and communication in maintaining an empire. Roads, bridges, and administrative centers were constructed to facilitate the movement of armies, officials, and goods, ensuring that the vast territories of the empire remained interconnected. Markets and trade routes flourished, enabling the exchange of ideas, resources, and cultural practices. Cities under Persian rule became centers of learning, commerce, and innovation, reflecting the integration of diverse peoples and the shared benefits of a stable and well-governed empire. This focus on infrastructure and connectivity was instrumental in transforming Persia from a regional power into a civilization capable of influencing the entire known world. Cyrus's policies of tolerance and inclusion extended to religion and cultural practices. He recognized that belief systems were deeply tied to identity and community, and he sought to respect these traditions rather than suppress them. In Babylonia, he allowed exiled peoples to return to their homelands, restoring temples and religious institutions. In other regions, he permitted local customs to continue, ensuring that the Persian Empire was seen not as a foreign oppressor, but as a protector and patron of culture. This approach strengthened loyalty, reduced resistance, and created a sense of unity among the empire's diverse populations. Education, knowledge, and the arts also flourished under Cyrus's vision. He encouraged learning, supported artisans, and promoted cultural exchange, recognizing that a prosperous empire required not only military strength and political organization, but also intellectual and artistic development. The fusion of ideas from different regions enriched Persian society, creating a civilization that valued innovation, creativity, and the pursuit of knowledge. This intellectual vibrancy contributed to the lasting influence of the Persian Empire, leaving a legacy that would inspire generations long after Cyrus's death. Cyrus's understanding of human nature, strategy, and governance allowed him to achieve feats that few rulers could imagine. His ability to combine military might with wisdom, conquest with diplomacy, and ambition with morality set a standard for leadership that would endure throughout history. He demonstrated that true power lies not only in territory, but in the ability to unite people, respect cultures, and govern justly. These principles became the foundation of the Achaemenid Empire, guiding his successors as they expanded and maintained one of the greatest empires the world had ever known. The challenges Cyrus faced were immense. He had to navigate political intrigue, rebellious territories, and the constant threat of external enemies. Yet he approached these challenges with foresight, patience, and adaptability, turning obstacles into opportunities and threats into avenues for consolidation and growth. His leadership style was proactive rather than reactive, visionary rather than impulsive, ensuring that the empire he built was resilient, flexible, and capable of enduring the test of time. Cyrus's legacy is also reflected in the moral and ethical dimensions of his rule. Unlike many rulers who relied solely on fear or brute force, he sought to govern with fairness, justice, and respect for human dignity. This approach won him admiration not only among his own people, but also among the conquered, creating a sense of legitimacy and moral authority that reinforced the stability of his empire. His actions demonstrated that leadership grounded in principle and vision can achieve both power and respect, a lesson that resonates through the ages. Throughout his reign, Cyrus the Great remained a figure of inspiration, embodying the ideals of courage, wisdom, and foresight. His ability to integrate diverse peoples, administer vast territories, and maintain loyalty across a sprawling empire was unparalleled. He understood that the strength of an empire depended not only on conquest, but on the hearts and minds of those who lived within it. By combining strategy, diplomacy, and moral authority, he created a model of governance that would influence empires for centuries to come. Cyrus's vision extended far beyond his lifetime. He laid the groundwork for successors like Cambyses and Darius, who would expand the empire to its greatest extent. Yet the principles he established, tolerance, respect for culture, effective administration, and strategic foresight, remained the guiding framework for Persian rule. His approach to leadership became a blueprint for managing diversity, maintaining stability, and fostering prosperity in an empire that spanned continents and cultures. In the annals of history, Cyrus the Great stands as a testament to the power of vision, wisdom, and humanity. He was not only a conqueror, but a unifier, a ruler whose strategies were as much about hearts and minds as they were about armies and territories. His legacy is the Persian Empire itself, a civilization built on principles that combined strength with justice, ambition with morality, and conquest with compassion. It is a legacy that continues to inspire, a reminder that leadership grounded in understanding and respect can achieve greatness that endures across centuries. Under Cyrus, Persia transformed from a collection of tribes and territories into a cohesive, organized, and visionary empire. He demonstrated that true greatness is achieved not merely through conquest, but through the integration of cultures, the wise administration of territories, and the ability to inspire loyalty and cooperation. Cyrus the Great was a ruler who understood that empires are not sustained by fear alone, but by vision, justice, and the respect of those who live under their authority. The story of Cyrus the Great is a story of insight, courage, and enduring influence. It is a story of a man who saw the potential of his people, united them under a common purpose, and built an empire that would stand as a beacon of civilization for generations. Through his leadership, Persia rose to prominence, setting a standard for governance, diplomacy, and military strategy that would influence the world for centuries. The wisdom, foresight, and moral authority of Cyrus the Great ensured that his name would be remembered not merely as a conqueror, but as the founder of one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. As Persia grew under the leadership of Cyrus the Great and his successors, the empire began to stretch far beyond its original borders, transforming from a regional power into a civilization whose reach spanned continents. The vastness of the empire was not merely a matter of land or armies, but a testament to the vision, strategy, and ingenuity of its rulers, who understood that true dominance required more than conquest. It required integration, communication, and connection. From the mountains of Anatolia to the river valleys of Mesopotamia, from the deserts of Arabia to the Indus plains, Persia's influence was felt across a staggering array of landscapes, peoples, and cultures. The first step in this monumental expansion was the consolidation of the lands surrounding Persia. Cyrus had already united the Persian tribes and overthrown the Medes, establishing the foundation for a centralized and powerful state. However, the surrounding territories presented both opportunities and challenges. To the west lay the lands of Babylon, a wealthy and ancient civilization that had been at the center of Mesopotamian power for centuries. To the east stretched the Indus Valley, a region rich in resources and culture, but distant and difficult to govern. To the north and south were mountains and deserts that provided both natural barriers and logistical challenges. The task of extending Persian authority across these lands required strategic brilliance, diplomatic skill, and the ability to adapt to diverse circumstances. Cyrus and his successors employed a combination of military conquest, diplomacy, and alliance, building to bring new regions under Persian control. Armies were sent to secure strategic locations, but battles were often preceded by careful negotiation, intelligence gathering, and psychological strategy. Persian generals understood that victory on the battlefield was only the first step. The real challenge was to integrate conquered peoples into the empire in a way that ensured loyalty and stability. This approach was revolutionary for its time, emphasizing governance and cultural respect as much as military strength. One of the most iconic aspects of Persian expansion was the establishment of administrative and logistical systems that enabled the empire to function over vast distances. The royal road, which would later become legendary under Darius the Great, had its foundations during these early campaigns, stretching over 500 kilometers. This network of roads connected cities, provinces, and strategic centers across the empire. It allowed messengers, officials, and armies to travel swiftly, ensuring that information, orders, and resources could flow efficiently from the center of power to the farthest provinces. The royal road was more than a physical infrastructure. It was a symbol of unity, a tangible representation of Persia's ability to manage diversity and maintain cohesion across immense distances. Trade and commerce flourished as the Persian Empire expanded. Markets and caravans traveled along the roads that linked distant cities, bringing with them not only goods but ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. Silk, spices, precious metals, and textiles moved across the empire, creating economic interdependence that strengthened Persian control and encouraged cultural exchange. Cities along these trade routes became cosmopolitan centers where merchants, scholars, artisans, and travelers mingled, exchanging knowledge and innovations that enriched the empire as a whole. Persia's emphasis on connectivity transformed it into a hub of human civilization, where the movement of people and ideas was as important as the movement of armies. The expansion of Persia was not limited to territory alone. It extended into the realm of culture and ideology. Persian rulers understood that in order to maintain a stable and cohesive empire, They needed to foster a sense of shared identity and purpose among their diverse subjects. This was achieved through policies of tolerance, respect for local traditions, and encouragement of cultural integration. Conquered peoples were allowed to maintain their religions, customs, and social structures, provided they acknowledged Persian authority. Temples were rebuilt, local leaders were incorporated into governance, and cultural practices were often celebrated rather than suppressed. This approach not only minimized rebellion, but also created a sense of belonging and loyalty, allowing the empire to thrive over centuries. As the empire expanded eastward, the Persians encountered the lands of the Indus Valley, a region of immense wealth, strategic importance, and rich cultural heritage. Conquering and integrating this territory required careful planning and diplomacy, as the region's cities were well established, prosperous, and culturally distinct. Persian governors and satraps implemented systems that balanced central oversight with local autonomy, ensuring that the economic and administrative potential of the region was harnessed without provoking resistance. Trade with the Indus Valley facilitated the exchange of goods and ideas, further enhancing Persia's economic and cultural influence. In the West, Persia faced the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Anatolia. These regions were home to established cities, powerful kings, and complex political structures. Persian expansion into these areas required both military skill and diplomatic finesse. Armies marched to secure key cities, while negotiations and alliances ensured that local rulers were incorporated into the Persian administrative system. The result was a network of provinces that were both strategically secure and economically productive, providing the empire with resources, manpower, and cultural richness that fueled its continued growth. The Persian approach to governance during expansion was marked by innovation and pragmatism. The empire was divided into satrapies, or provinces, each overseen by a governor who managed local administration, tax collection, and justice. These satraps operated under the authority of the king, but were often drawn from local elites, creating a system that balanced central control with local knowledge and influence. This structure allowed Persia to manage vast and diverse territories effectively, ensuring stability while accommodating regional differences. Communication and accountability were maintained through the network of roads, messengers, and inspections that connected the central government to its provinces. Persia's expansion also had profound implications for its military strategy and organization. The empire's armies were among the most disciplined and effective in the ancient world, capable of operating across a variety of terrains and climates. Persian generals employed tactics that combined mobility, intelligence, and psychological insight, adapting to the unique challenges of each campaign. Logistics and supply chains were meticulously managed, ensuring that forces could operate far from the imperial center without losing effectiveness. The combination of strategic planning, disciplined troops, and effective leadership enabled Persia to conquer vast territories and maintain control over them for generations. Connectivity was not limited to physical infrastructure. It extended into the realm of culture, communication, and knowledge. The Persian Empire became a conduit for the exchange of ideas, technologies, and traditions across continents. Scholars, artisans, and merchants traveled freely along Persian roads, bringing with them innovations in agriculture, architecture, astronomy, and governance. Cities under Persian control became vibrant centers of learning and creativity, where diverse peoples contributed to a shared cultural legacy. The integration of knowledge from across the empire enhanced its administrative efficiency, economic prosperity, and cultural richness, making Persia not only a political and military power, but also a civilization at the forefront of human achievement. One of the most remarkable aspects of Persian expansion was the empire's ability to maintain stability despite its diversity. The Persian rulers understood that an empire composed of many peoples, languages, and traditions required policies that fostered loyalty, cooperation, and shared purpose. Conquered regions were not homogenized by force. Instead, they were integrated through respect, incentives, and effective administration. Local leaders were often retained in positions of authority, temples and religious practices were preserved, and regional identities were recognized and valued. This approach minimized rebellion, encouraged participation in governance, and allowed Persia to harness the strengths of its diverse populations. The Persian system of roads, communication, and administration created an unprecedented level of connectivity across the empire. Messengers could travel vast distances in days rather than weeks, carrying news, orders, and information that allowed the central government to respond rapidly to challenges. Trade networks connected cities from Egypt to the Indus Valley, fostering economic growth and cultural exchange. Cultural and religious ideas traveled along these routes, blending with local traditions to create a rich tapestry of civilization. The result was an empire that was not only vast but also cohesive, resilient, and dynamic, capable of adapting to the challenges of geography, politics, and society. The expansion of Persia also facilitated interactions with distant civilizations, creating opportunities for diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchange. Persian rulers engaged with neighboring powers, negotiated treaties, and established alliances that extended their influence beyond the empire's borders. Envoys traveled to foreign courts, merchants carried goods across deserts and mountains, and scholars exchanged knowledge across regions. This level of connectivity allowed Persia to project power, influence culture, and integrate diverse peoples into a shared system of governance and commerce. Despite the vastness of the empire, Persia remained remarkably responsive and adaptable. The central government maintained oversight of provinces through regular inspections, reports from satraps, and the efficient movement of messengers and resources. Policies were flexible, allowing for local variations while maintaining overall cohesion. Rebellions and unrest were addressed not solely through force, but through negotiation, incentives, and integration, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of human nature and the complexities of empire management. Persian expansion was also closely linked to economic development. The empire's control of key trade routes, cities, and resources facilitated wealth accumulation, technological innovation, and social development. Markets thrived, artisans and craftsmen found new opportunities, and agricultural production expanded to feed growing populations. The movement of goods, people, and ideas along the Persian roads enhanced economic interdependence, creating prosperity that reinforced loyalty to the empire. This economic strength supported military campaigns, administrative structures, and cultural initiatives, making Persia a self-reinforcing system of power, influence, and innovation. The integration of diverse cultures and regions created a unique Persian identity that was both inclusive and cohesive. While local traditions were respected, the empire promoted values such as justice, loyalty, and service to the king, creating a sense of shared purpose. Cultural exchange flourished, blending languages, religious practices, artistic styles, and intellectual traditions. This synthesis of diversity and unity was a defining characteristic of the Persian Empire, allowing it to maintain cohesion across vast distances and over centuries. As the empire expanded further into the eastern and western frontiers, the Persian rulers faced new challenges. Harsh terrains, distant populations, and potential threats required innovative strategies, both military and administrative. Persian governors were empowered to act with flexibility, adapting central policies to local conditions while maintaining loyalty to the king. Roads, supply lines, and communication networks ensured that even the most distant provinces remained connected to the imperial center, enabling rapid response to crises and efficient governance. The expansion and connectivity of Persia had profound and lasting effects on world history. By linking diverse regions, facilitating trade and communication, and integrating cultures, the empire created a framework for political, economic, and social development that influenced subsequent civilizations. The systems of governance, infrastructure, and administration developed during this period would serve as models for later empires, demonstrating the enduring power of strategic vision and thoughtful leadership. Persian expansion was not merely the conquest of territory, it was the creation of a networked civilization where roads, cities, trade, and culture formed an interconnected whole. This connectivity allowed the empire to maintain stability, encourage prosperity, and foster innovation across thousands of miles. The empire became a living system, with each province, city, and trade route contributing to the strength, cohesion, and vitality of the whole. Through these achievements, Persia demonstrated that the power of an empire lies not only in the number of lands it controls, but in the ability to connect those lands, integrate their peoples, and harness their collective resources, knowledge, and culture. The expansion of Persia was a triumph of vision, strategy, and human ingenuity, transforming the Iranian plateau from a regional power base into the center of one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. In the end, the story of Persian expansion and connectivity is a story of ambition, intelligence, and the transformative power of organization and vision. By uniting diverse peoples, building roads and infrastructure, facilitating trade and communication, and fostering cultural integration, the Persian Empire became far more than a collection of territories. It became a civilization that influenced the course of human history. The achievements of this period laid the groundwork for centuries of Persian dominance, setting a standard for governance, administration, and cultural integration that continues to inspire admiration and study to this day. The true strength of the Persian Empire was not measured solely by the size of its territories or the victories of its armies, but by the careful, deliberate, and extraordinary systems of governance and administration that allowed it to function smoothly across thousands of miles of diverse lands. As the empire expanded under Cyrus the Great and his successors, the need for organization became paramount. An empire as vast as Persia, encompassing multiple languages, religions, and cultural traditions, could easily have fragmented under the weight of its own ambition. Yet through ingenious planning, strict discipline, and thoughtful delegation of authority, Persia created a structure that ensured cohesion, efficiency, and loyalty throughout its domains. At the heart of this administrative system was the concept of satrapies, or provinces, each overseen by a satrap, a governor appointed directly by the king. This innovation allowed the Persian rulers to balance the competing needs of central authority and local governance. Satraps were given considerable autonomy to manage the day-to-day affairs of their provinces, including law enforcement, tax collection, and defense, yet they were always accountable to the king, whose authority remained supreme. This balance of power created a stable system in which local knowledge and initiative could thrive, while the overarching structure of the empire ensured unity and obedience. The role of a satrap was multifaceted and complex. Satraps were responsible for maintaining order, ensuring the collection of taxes, and reporting any unrest or potential threats to the central government. They managed local armies, oversaw infrastructure projects, and served as intermediaries between the king and the populace. To prevent the abuse of power and maintain accountability, the Persian system also included royal inspectors, often called the king's eyes and ears, who traveled across the empire to monitor satraps' activities and report directly to the king. This dual system of local autonomy and centralized oversight was remarkable for its time, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of governance that allowed Persia to remain stable over centuries. Taxation under the Persian Empire was carefully structured to support the administrative system, military campaigns, and infrastructure projects. Provinces were assessed based on their population, wealth, and resources, and taxes were collected in a manner designed to be fair, predictable, and efficient. The revenue generated from these taxes funded not only the royal court and military, but also public works, roads, canals, and urban development. The careful management of resources allowed the empire to maintain a level of prosperity that reinforced loyalty among its subjects and ensured that even distant regions remained connected to the central authority. The Persian administrative system also prioritized communication and record keeping, understanding that information was a vital tool for governance. Couriers and messengers traveled the extensive network of roads, delivering reports, decrees, and instructions between the capital and the provinces. Administrative records were meticulously maintained, documenting taxation, legal disputes, and economic activity. This emphasis on communication and record keeping allowed the Persian kings to make informed decisions, respond to threats, and maintain control over far-flung territories. It was an early example of a bureaucracy functioning on a scale unparalleled in the ancient world. Beyond administration, the military power of Persia was a defining feature of the empire. The Persian army was not only large, but highly disciplined, organized, and adaptable, capable of operating across varied terrains and against diverse adversaries. Persian generals understood that victory on the battlefield required more than numbers. It demanded strategy, logistics, and the ability to integrate soldiers from multiple regions, each with their own skills and traditions. The army was composed of professional soldiers, conscripts, and auxiliaries drawn from across the empire, creating a force that combined local expertise with centralized coordination. The Persian military was renowned for its diversity and specialization. Infantry units formed the backbone of the army, providing discipline, cohesion, and defensive strength. Cavalry units, including elite horsemen, offered mobility, speed, and the ability to exploit weaknesses in enemy formations. Archers and missile troops provided long-range support, while engineers and logistical specialists ensured that the army could move, camp, and fight effectively even in remote regions. This combination of specialization and coordination allowed Persia to project power across vast distances, respond to threats swiftly, and maintain control over conquered territories. Leadership within the Persian army was closely linked to the administrative system. Satraps were responsible for raising and maintaining local forces, which could be integrated into the central army when required. This decentralized approach allowed for rapid mobilization while ensuring that the central command retained overall strategic control. The king himself, or trusted generals appointed by him, directed major campaigns, often combining multiple regional forces into a coordinated operation. This flexibility, combined with rigorous discipline and training, made the Persian military a formidable instrument of empire. Logistics, a critical aspect of military effectiveness, was managed with exceptional foresight. The vast distances and varied terrains of the Persian Empire presented significant challenges for the movement of armies, supplies, and equipment. Roads, bridges, and supply depots were constructed to facilitate mobility. ensuring that troops could be deployed efficiently and sustained during prolonged campaigns. The royal road, already discussed in the context of connectivity and trade, also served a crucial military function, allowing messengers and reinforcements to travel rapidly across the empire. This emphasis on logistics reflected an understanding that an army's effectiveness depended as much on organization and supply as on bravery or skill in combat. The Persian approach to warfare combined strategy, diplomacy, and psychological insight. Generals and kings recognized that the loyalty and morale of soldiers were as important as their weapons and armor. Campaigns were planned with careful consideration of terrain, climate, and enemy psychology. Siegecraft, maneuvering, and negotiation were all employed to minimize casualties, maintain cohesion, and achieve objectives efficiently. Even in conquest, Persia often sought to integrate rather than destroy, offering incentives to cities and populations that surrendered peacefully. This approach reinforced loyalty, minimized resistance, and ensured that military victories translated into lasting control. In addition to conventional military units, Persia relied on specialized forces to maintain order and security across the empire. Guard units, often drawn from elite or trusted soldiers, protected the king, royal family, and key administrative centers. Scouts and intelligence operatives provided information about potential threats, enemy movements, and regional conditions. Engineers and laborers constructed fortifications, bridges, and siege equipment, enabling the army to overcome natural obstacles and enemy defenses. The integration of these specialized roles into a cohesive military system reflected a level of sophistication unmatched by many contemporary civilizations. Persian military power was not only a tool of conquest, but also a means of deterrence and stability. The presence of disciplined and well-equipped forces throughout the empire discouraged rebellion, maintained order, and reinforced the authority of the central government. Garrisons were stationed strategically in key cities, border regions, and trade hubs, ensuring rapid response to unrest or external threats. This combination of mobility, preparedness, and strategic placement allowed Persia to maintain control over an empire that stretched thousands of miles and encompassed countless peoples. The administration and military of Persia were closely intertwined. Effective governance required the ability to project power, while military success depended on efficient organization, communication, and logistical support. The coordination between satraps, the central bureaucracy, and the army ensured that policies could be implemented, resources mobilized, and threats neutralized. This integrated system created an empire that was both resilient and adaptable, capable of responding to challenges ranging from local rebellions to invasions by foreign powers. Persia's emphasis on justice and fairness was also reflected in its administrative and military systems. Laws were codified, officials were held accountable, and disputes were adjudicated in a manner that sought to balance local customs with imperial authority. The army, while formidable, was expected to uphold order and protect the population, rather than exploit or oppress. This combination of strength and ethical governance reinforced loyalty, encouraged cooperation, and enhanced the legitimacy of Persian rule. The training and education of military leaders were carefully structured to ensure competence, discipline, and strategic acumen. Officers were trained in tactics, logistics, and administration, as well as the cultural and political realities of the regions they governed. This holistic approach to leadership ensured that the Persian army was not only powerful on the battlefield, but also capable of maintaining stability, integrating diverse forces, and supporting the administrative framework of the empire. Communication between the central government and military units was facilitated by an extensive network of messengers, signal systems, and roads. Orders could be transmitted rapidly across great distances, allowing for coordinated operations and timely responses to emerging threats. The ability to relay information efficiently was a cornerstone of Persian military effectiveness, ensuring that even the most distant provinces could be integrated into the strategic plans of the empire. Persian military campaigns were also accompanied by careful attention to diplomacy, negotiation, and alliance building. Conquest was often preceded by offers of peace, tribute, or incorporation into the empire's administrative system. This approach minimized bloodshed, encouraged loyalty, and allowed Persia to consolidate power without unnecessary destruction. The combination of diplomacy and military force reflected a sophisticated understanding of governance, strategy, and human nature, contributing to the long-term stability of the empire. Infrastructure, economic planning, and military power were mutually reinforcing. Roads facilitated troop movements and supply chains. Markets ensured the provision of resources, and administrative systems organized taxation and local governance. This integrated approach allowed Persia to sustain military campaigns over vast distances, maintain control over diverse regions, and create an empire that was cohesive, prosperous, and resilient. Persian military power also extended to naval capabilities, particularly in regions such as the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean coast. Fleets were constructed to protect trade routes, project influence, and support campaigns along coastal regions. Naval forces complemented the land armies, ensuring that Persia could respond to threats on multiple fronts and maintain control over critical maritime territories. The combination of land and naval power enhanced the empire's strategic flexibility and reinforced its capacity for both defense and expansion. The enduring legacy of Persian administration and military organization lies in its combination of centralized authority and local autonomy, discipline and adaptability, strength and ethical governance. By balancing these elements, Persia was able to create an empire that was not only vast in territory but cohesive in purpose, resilient in the face of challenges, and capable of integrating diverse cultures into a unified system. Through careful planning, strategic foresight, and the integration of administration and military power, Persia achieved a level of governance and control that was unparalleled in the ancient world. The empire's systems allowed it to maintain stability, encourage prosperity, and project influence across continents. Persian rulers understood that true power was not merely the ability to conquer, but the ability to organize, govern, and sustain an empire over time. The administration and military of Persia were inseparable pillars of imperial strength. Effective governance required disciplined forces to enforce laws, protect populations, and defend borders, while military success depended on efficient administration, logistics, and communication. This synergy created an empire that was both powerful and enduring, capable of withstanding internal and external pressures while fostering economic, cultural, and intellectual development. By emphasizing accountability, strategic planning, ethical governance, and the integration of diverse peoples, Persia established a model of imperial power that would influence civilizations for centuries. The legacy of satrapies, administrative oversight, disciplined armies, and sophisticated logistics demonstrated that an empire's strength lies not only in conquest, but in the ability to govern effectively, maintain order, and inspire loyalty across vast and varied territories. Persia's achievements in administration and military organization reflect a civilization that understood the complexities of empire building. By combining innovation, foresight, and respect for human and cultural diversity, Persian rulers created systems that allowed their empire to thrive for centuries, setting standards that would be emulated by future generations. The Persian Empire was more than a collection of conquered lands. It was a well-organized, cohesive, and adaptive civilization, whose strength rested on the integration of administration and military power, the balance of authority and autonomy, and the careful stewardship of resources, people, and knowledge. Through its sophisticated systems of governance, strategic military organization, and commitment to stability and justice, Persia demonstrated that the power of an empire lies not only in the territories it controls, but in its ability to govern, defend, and sustain those territories over time. The administration and military of Persia were a testament to human ingenuity, strategic vision, and the enduring value of organization, discipline, and ethical leadership. The Persian Empire was not merely a force of military conquest or administrative efficiency. It was a civilization of extraordinary culture, innovation, and enduring influence. From the bustling streets of Persepolis to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of Anatolia, Persian society was a tapestry of ideas, art, religion, and technology. While its kings wielded power with wisdom and strategy, it was the culture they nurtured, the innovations they encouraged, and the legacies they left behind that would resonate through the centuries, shaping not only the lands they ruled, but the very course of human civilization. At the heart of Persian culture was a remarkable synthesis of diverse traditions. Persia was a land of many peoples, languages, and religions, and its rulers understood that unity required more than political domination. It required the integration and celebration of diversity. The Achaemenid kings, from Cyrus the Great to Darius and Xerxes, fostered an environment where local customs could flourish alongside imperial ideals. Temples were restored, festivals were celebrated, and local rulers were incorporated into the governance of the empire. This respect for cultural identity created loyalty, minimized rebellion, and allowed Persian culture to flourish without erasing the traditions of the conquered. Religion played a central role in Persian society, influencing not only personal life but governance, law, and philosophy. Zoroastrianism, the faith most closely associated with the Persian Empire, emphasized moral duality, the struggle between good and evil, and the responsibility of individuals to live virtuous lives. The principles of Zoroastrian ethics permeated Persian law and administration, encouraging justice, honesty, and the protection of the weak. Fire temples, rituals, and sacred texts served as both spiritual and social anchors, reinforcing the moral framework upon which the empire rested. Yet Persia's embrace of religious tolerance ensured that the empire was not limited to a single faith. Jews, Babylonians, Egyptians, and others were allowed to practice their own religions, creating a climate of pluralism that was rare in the ancient world. Persian innovation extended far beyond religion into the realms of art, architecture, and urban planning. The construction of grand palaces, monumental staircases, and intricately decorated halls reflected both imperial power and aesthetic sophistication. Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, stands as a testament to the artistic vision of Persia, with its reliefs depicting the diversity of the empire's peoples, elaborate friezes of processions, and columns that soar like living symbols of authority and culture. These structures were not only functional but symbolic, representing the unity of the empire and the grandeur of its civilization. The attention to detail, proportion, and artistic expression in Persian architecture influenced neighboring cultures and left a legacy that endures to this day. Urban planning and infrastructure were another arena in which Persian innovation was evident. Cities were designed with functionality and aesthetics in mind, featuring marketplaces, residential quarters, administrative centers, and temples in harmonious arrangements. Roads, canals, and aqueducts facilitated the flow of water, goods, and people, ensuring that cities were both livable and economically vibrant. The Royal Road, already legendary for its role in administration and military communication, also fostered cultural exchange, enabling ideas, art, and craftsmanship to travel across the empire. Persian cities were centers of innovation, where diverse cultures met, blended, and inspired each other to create new forms of art, literature, and science. Persian contributions to technology and engineering were equally remarkable. The empire's infrastructure projects, including roads, bridges, canals, and irrigation systems, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of engineering principles and logistics. Canals brought water to arid regions, supporting agriculture and settlement. Roads connected distant provinces, facilitating trade and governance, and fortifications protected cities and strategic locations. Persian engineers combined practical problem-solving with visionary planning, creating systems that would endure for centuries and inspire future civilizations. Their achievements in construction, surveying, and hydraulic engineering reflected not only technical skill, but an understanding of the importance of connectivity and sustainability in a vast empire. Education and scholarship were valued in Persian society, contributing to a rich intellectual culture. The empire attracted scholars, astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers from across its territories, fostering the exchange of knowledge and ideas. Libraries, schools, and centers of learning were established to preserve and disseminate knowledge, ensuring that innovation and cultural development were sustained over generations. Persian rulers supported scholarship not merely as a tool of governance, but as a means of advancing civilization, recognizing that an educated populace and informed administration strengthened both society and the state. Trade and commerce were central to Persian cultural and economic life. The empire's vast territories included fertile lands, resources, rich mountains, and access to both rivers and seas, facilitating the exchange of goods across continents. Merchants traveled along well-maintained roads, carrying textiles, spices, metals, and luxury items from one end of the empire to the other. Markets became centers of social interaction, cultural exchange, and innovation, where ideas were shared as freely as goods. Persian support for commerce, combined with the empire's infrastructure, created prosperity that reinforced loyalty and stimulated the development of cities, crafts, and artistic production. Persian art was characterized by both diversity and cohesion, reflecting the empire's ability to integrate multiple cultural influences while maintaining a distinct identity. Sculptures, reliefs, ceramics, and jewelry displayed intricate designs, symbolic motifs, and technical mastery. Artistic representations often celebrated the power and benevolence of the king, the diversity of the empire's peoples, and the harmony between human society and the natural world. These works were not merely decorative. They communicated ideals, reinforced social hierarchies, and celebrated the achievements of Persian civilization. The aesthetic sensibilities developed during this period influenced neighboring cultures, leaving a lasting mark on the art of the ancient world. Language and writing were also critical components of Persian culture. The empire employed a standardized script for administrative purposes, enabling efficient communication across vast distances. Yet local languages and scripts were preserved, reflecting the empire's commitment to cultural pluralism. Administrative records, inscriptions, and monumental texts served not only as tools of governance, but as a medium for the preservation and dissemination of knowledge, culture, and history. The careful balance between central authority and regional diversity ensured that the empire could communicate effectively without erasing the identities of its subjects. Persian culture placed significant emphasis on ceremonial and ritual life, which reinforced both social cohesion and imperial authority. Festivals, religious ceremonies, and royal processions were carefully orchestrated to celebrate the achievements of the empire, honor the king, and integrate diverse cultural traditions. These events served as opportunities for social interaction, cultural exchange, and the reinforcement of loyalty, creating a shared sense of identity and purpose across the empire's vast territories. Through ritual and ceremony, Persian rulers cultivated both reverence and participation, strengthening the bonds between the monarchy and the people. The Persian approach to governance, infrastructure, art, and culture created a civilization that was both sophisticated and adaptable. The empire was capable of integrating diverse peoples and regions while maintaining a cohesive identity, fostering prosperity while ensuring stability, and encouraging innovation while preserving tradition. This balance between unity and diversity was a defining characteristic of Persian culture, enabling the empire to thrive for centuries and exert influence far beyond its borders. Persian contributions to astronomy, mathematics, and science were significant and far-reaching. Observatories, records of celestial movements, and calculations related to calendars and agriculture demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of natural phenomena. Scholars studied the stars to improve navigation, predict seasonal changes, and plan agricultural cycles. Mathematics was applied to engineering, architecture, and trade, ensuring precision in construction, administration, and commerce. The integration of scientific knowledge into daily life, governance, and infrastructure reflected the empire's commitment to practical and intellectual advancement. Persian philosophy and ethics were deeply intertwined with religion and governance. Zoroastrian principles, emphasizing truth, justice, and moral responsibility, informed both personal conduct and state policy. Rulers were expected to govern with fairness, protect the vulnerable, and maintain the moral order of society. This ethical framework reinforced the legitimacy of the monarchy, guided administrative decisions, and influenced interactions with conquered peoples. The emphasis on justice and ethical governance became a hallmark of Persian civilization, contributing to its enduring legacy and inspiring subsequent generations. Persian achievements in engineering and architecture extended to monumental construction projects that combined functionality, symbolism, and artistic expression. Palaces, temples, bridges, and roads were designed to impress, inspire, and serve practical purposes. The careful alignment of structures, the use of durable materials, and the integration of decorative art reflected an understanding of aesthetics, engineering, and cultural messaging. These projects were often collaborative efforts, drawing on the skills of architects, engineers, artisans, and laborers from across the empire, reflecting both the diversity and unity of Persian civilization. The Persian Empire also played a critical role in facilitating cross-cultural interactions and exchanges. Its vast network of roads, administrative systems, and trade routes enabled the movement of people, ideas, and goods across regions that had previously been isolated. Scholars, merchants, artisans, and diplomats traveled throughout the empire, bringing innovations, knowledge, and cultural practices that enriched Persian society and contributed to a shared civilizational identity. The empire's ability to connect distant regions fostered the flow of ideas, promoting intellect